Before I met Guillermo, I already knew everything I needed to know about him. My friend Paul had spent a few days with him in the summer of 2014 and was not immune to the man's particular magnetism. During the months of his obsession with Gaza, what tormented Paul the most was not the eviscerated babies, but the impulsive and inscrutable attitude of the photographer, who seemed to be guided by his own logic, immune to common sense. He pulled you like a hurricane into the core of things. He hijacks your life for a week, and then you spend months trying to wrap your head around what happened, he said.
Paul introduced the two of us in a bar in Barcelona, a few days after Guillermo's 47th birthday. It had been over a year since their journey through Gaza. I had spent that whole year regularly looking at Guillermo's photos, with Paul's stories igniting my imagination. He posted the photos on a minimalist website, without explanations or captions. The effect was one long, grotesque, contextless sequence of human flesh. All the protagonists became familiar to me in the end. The boy diving in a pool in Kabul, the trio of soldiers posing like rock stars in Crimea, the horizontal woman clinging to a railing during a hurricane on Staten Island. I was slowly making my way through the gallery when I came upon the picture that made my pulse race. A naked woman, seen from behind, crouching down by a hotel minibar. On the right, a pair of men's jeans slung over the back of a chair. The scene oozed sex and danger. She was a girlfriend, or an ex, or some girl he'd photographed from a post-coital hotel bed, some distant fling. It didn't matter. It was a perfectly round ass, an ass that made Guillermo intriguing by association. Not only did he have access to these superior asses, but he photographed them and shared them alongside portraits of a turbaned member of the Taliban and a Ukrainian corpse lying in the bushes. The existence of that ass implied the possibility of becoming that ass, about doing it. When I got to the bar, he was showing Paul a site for second-hand boats on his iPhone. He explained that he was going to Turkey to see one, and that he planned to use his contacts at a travel magazine to stay for free in luxury hotels on the coast, under the false pretense of doing a promotional piece. Maybe he would take the opportunity to take a few photos of refugees. Every now and then he looked up from his phone, gauging the effect of his words, smiling as if I'd already fallen in love with him. That was where I first heard about his plan to quit photojournalism, buy a yacht, and spend his time sailing around the world. His mother's recent death had left him with a substantial inheritance. What he was most excited about was not having to see any of the correspondents, editors, and freelance journalists he'd had to work with in conflict zones. Fuck them all, he said in Spanish, his smile widening more and more. I'm out of here. Later that same afternoon he phones me, wanting to meet up the next day. He says cielo a lot. It sounds archaic, exotic, calling me darling in Spanish like that. What time's good for you, cielo? Okay, cielo. 6 o'clock at the university. I'm not sure if I'm attracted to him, but I say yes, then spend the rest of the day drunk with anticipation and a kind of euphoria at having been chosen.
On our first date, he takes me out for a kebab on Carrer de Joaquin Costa. As we get nearer, I try a last-minute manoeuvre and suggest going for a drink first. We need to find somewhere dark and sensual, away from the smell of fried onions. At the counter of an empty cocktail bar in the Raval, I down a beer all by myself while Guillermo explains that he's an abstaining alcoholic and hasn't drunk a drop since he was 30. He had an extreme off-the-rails youth, which ended when an aunt picked him up off the street and checked him into a reputable drug treatment centre. I notice a flicker of surprise in his eyes when I reveal that I'm 24, but in a matter of seconds the unshakable smile returns. Later, at the kebab shop, the beetroot-reddened yoghurt sauce trickling down our wrists, he tells me again about his plan to go to Turkey this Friday coming. He mentions luxury hotels and oval bathtubs with views of the Aegean. He mentions his friend, the editor of a national newspaper, who publishes anything he sends him. That night, he calls and informs me that I will go to Turkey with him, and can go about buying my flight to Izmir whenever I want. Before hanging up, he cryptically adds that we are the same person. The night before I fly, I can't sleep. I chain smoke cigarettes on the balcony of an apartment I share with a childhood friend in Camp de l'Arba. I project glorious scenarios, too excited to remain horizontal. You wait a lifetime for someone to confirm that you're special, and one day the legendary perfect ass hunting photographer beckons and says the words Turkey, refugees, reporting, 5-star, yacht. He lets you inside his world of unusual adventures and singles you out from the crowd. I pack in the early morning, mentally distancing myself from a small life consumed by the fear of mediocrity.